Hard to believe it, but there are only 3 regular season games remaining for the Tar Heels. So now it's time to start asking the question, what are the things that need to be fine-tuned before we reach the postseason?
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Wednesday, February 28th, 2024. Not the last day of February because, Pat Kilby, it is a leap year. Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shea. This is my guy, Coach Pat Kilby. We want to thank you for making Locked On Tar Heels your first listen or watch to get your Tar Heels content every single day. Special shout out to you everydayers who are here with us. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Pat, we got a couple things we want to look at today. What are some things we want to see Carolina clean up in trying to push, finish teams off? And then also we want to talk about a thing that this Carolina team is doing that hasn't been done in at least 40 years. And that's the number just simply because I haven't researched far enough all the way back yet. But Pat, we want to ask a couple questions together today and then just kind of go back and forth on them. So let's start with this one. What should we look for in the final 3 games of the regular season? Let me just rattle those off really quick to make sure everyone's in on that. Carolina hosts NC State on Saturday, then hosts Notre Dame next Tuesday, the only game of the season or the regular season against Notre Dame. Got to break that dreaded Tuesday drought, and then to Duke that next Saturday to close out the regular season. So in those 3 final games of the regular season, what are the things that we would like to see Carolina fine-tune and really shore up heading into postseason play, meaning both the ACC tournament and the NCAA tournament? As you know, based on the win over Miami last week or on Monday night and everything else that's been going on, Carolina has clinched no worse than the 2 seed in the ACC tournament. Got to keep it rolling, but they can also work on some stuff, and that's what we want to see, particularly against NC State and Notre Dame. So, Pat, why don't we do this? We've each got an answer. Pack and I have not talked about our answers. Hopefully we don't have the same thing. Pack, I'll let you go first, and then we'll discuss your answer.
Yeah, so for me, I think the big thing I'd like to see over the final regular season games is just consistent quality contributions from all 5 of our starters. And I think this is a convenient time to be talking about it because we just watched RJ Davis load the whole team up on his back and carry us to a win. But it just feels like, throughout the course of the season, it's been, well, man, RJ and Harrison played well tonight, but Armando and Cormac, they were just kind of off, or one night it's Cormac and Armando and RJ and Harrison aren't on. And so it just feels like we haven't had all 5 at once, just fluidly just playing together. And, everybody locked in, everybody engaged, everybody doing well at the same time. And obviously that's a lot to ask. I mean, not everyone's going to play a perfect game all the time. That's not really what I'm suggesting, but I would just like to see consistent contributions from all 5. And it doesn't even have to be in scoring. It can be.
I was literally just typing the note to ask you after you finished. Do you mean scoring specifically or beyond that? That's hilarious. Keep going.
Yeah, beyond that, and into maybe it's Harrison with a triple nickel for all I care, but he's contributing 5 points, 5 or 6 rebounds or more, which we know he's capable of, 5 or 6 assists. Maybe it's Cormac with some tray balls and Armando on the glass and RJ creating for others, Cadeau creating for others, whatever it is. I just like to see all 5 of them on the same page playing well together in these last 3 games. And a big reason why I think that's important is because you don't want to have any disruptions in your flow heading into the postseason. The ACC tournament, the NCAA tournament, we know those are right around the corner. So it's just important to me that we're all on the same page and there's cohesiveness moving into the postseason.
Yeah. So, Pat, let me pepper your scenario with some questions just to get more into your thoughts on it. how is this achievable? Like, is there something that can be worked towards to make this happen? Or is it just like it's got to kind of organically happen because you can't predict on any given day? Like, how much of it is the randomness of sport? That's what I'm asking. How much of this is the randomness of sport, and how much of this is effort and energy and execution?
Well, that's a great question, because I feel like it's some of both. Obviously the chemistry and those things, they have to happen organically. And I feel like they have, but also to achieve what we want to achieve in playing together, I think there has to be chemistry and trust that can only come through doing it together and playing together. And now that we're in this, home stretch of the season, I feel like we have laid the groundwork for these five plus the bench, but these five to really take off and play well together. They know each other's nuances. They know each other's spots. They know where they like to catch the ball before they catch and shoot. I mean, they know all the little things about each other by this point in the season. And so it's achievable by, hitting that cohesiveness, just hitting it in stride, taking care of each other, playing together with unity and taking care of business.
So, and as you said, it extends beyond the five starters. But like, if let's say you've got two guys going at like I'm thinking in baseball terms, where at any given time there's a dude in a slump at the plate or something that's happening, but it's still contributing on defense or in other ways. So let's say, what is the ceiling if 2.5 of the starters are playing at the level they need to be? And what's the ceiling if all five are doing it?
Obviously,
what's the floor, right? Like if they're not.
Yeah. So to me, I mean, the easy answer there is if all five of them are on the ball and they're rolling and they're playing together, the ceiling is a national championship.
Do you believe that about this team?
I absolutely do. I mean, listen, UConn, Purdue, I think you could make an argument they're in a category of their own.
I'm ready to be Houston with them, by the way, for what it's worth.
Yeah, I think I'm right there. I'm not sure I'm fully in on it yet.
Because of the offense, for me, that would be the one hesitation.
And see, I put Carolina right there with Houston right now. Those are teams that you might not, Vegas might not go, hey, Carolina's favored to win the national championship. But by gosh, they can beat those teams. And we said it earlier in the year. UConn kicked our tail. But we felt like come March, we were going to be able to play with them. And I feel like that's still the truth. That's the ceiling for this team. Oh. Now, the floor, if 2.5 of them are playing well and the other two or 2.5, I guess, aren't, we're not getting all that we can.
Cormac's upper or lower body. That's what I'm separating.
Yeah. If we're not getting the maximum from 2 to 3 of our guys, I feel like it could be a first round exit, and that would be a shame because this team is capable of much more than that, like we just talked about. But I feel like this team is headed in the right direction. As much as there are things to learn from and grow from, we have won 4 of the last 5. We're in contention for a 1 seed, and we're in the talk for a national championship. And I feel confident about that. We just got to keep rolling in the right direction.
Let's roll in the right direction. Pat, here's what's funny about my answer to the same question. You went with the starters. I actually said the thing I really want to see fine-tuned is the bench. I think it has already been done so in terms of role definition. And we haven't really, usually you and I have talked about that a good bit in the first 2 years of the Hubert Davis era. But we haven't had to this year because, at least from where I sit, I think the role definition is infinitely more clearly defined this year. So kudos to the coaching staff for that. So that's not the part I want to see fine-tuned. It is the 5 starters, and it's Seth Trimble and the Jaylens. I love that. But here's what I love. In the past 2 games, the bench hasn't contributed a ton in terms of scoring. 3 points against Virginia, 7 points against Miami. But kind of to what you've been talking about, that it goes beyond scoring. They've been contributing in a multitude of winning ways for the team. And I know that plus minus is not the end all be all, but it does show whether the team is playing well or not when you're on the floor. And in these last 2 games, a bench player has led the team in plus minus and a bench player has either tied or been in second place in plus minus as well. Against Virginia, Jay Witt led the way with plus 11. Seth was tied for second, plus 10, and Jay Wash was tied for fourth, plus 7. Miami, Seth Trimble led the team with plus 12. Jay Witt was second on the team, plus 8, and Jay Wash was tied for third with plus 3. And so, Pac, when you look at beyond the box, I mean, you look at the box score, but look at the winning plays that are made, the tip outs on the those free throws against Miami. Harrison Ingram's tip on the blob, I can't even call it a blob play, just that home run pass that Miami kept trying to throw all night long. These kind of things are helping the team win. And when that's happening, then Hubert Davis is going to continue to play them and put them in the game. So for me, continuing to fine tune means we know who the guys are. We know what they're doing. I want to see double-digit minutes from all three of them, game in and game out. And sure, we'll get a little sprinkling of the other guys, and that's fine, whatever. But Seth and Jaylen have to be dialed in to what this team needs of them, game in and game out. These 3 final games, 2 at home and 1 at Duke, are great opportunities to continue solidifying what that is. Pac, any follow-up to that?
Well, let me ask you this. Which of these 3, Seth Trimble, Jalen Withers, Jalen Washington, if we're going to reach our ceiling, which of those 3 are the most important?
Man, that's tough. I can make an argument for all 3 of them, I feel like. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't mean that as a cop-out. I mean that as like legitimately all 3 of them have critical thing. I think it's Seth. Because of his individual defense. And when he's able to get those, you know, there were times, I feel like we haven't seen it lately, but he was efficient from 3, you know, but not taking many of them, getting to the rim. And so for me with Seth, it's like that balance of, I want that ball hawking defense, like a safety that just comes crashing down on you. But I also want to see him getting out in transition and hit a 3 once every 2 games, maybe. So I'm going to go with Seth, but you could just as easily convince me that it's either of the Jaylens. What would be your answer to that question?
I think I would probably go Seth too, but just to play devil's advocate here, I'm going to go with Jay Witt. And
that was my second. He was my second answer. Yep.
He can bring something that no one else on our team can bring. You know, just his electricity, his energy, his athleticism, his ability to guard multiple positions. And if we're being honest, if he's locked in and he's playing within his role, he can put some points on the board himself.
That's right.
He hasn't done it quite as consistently as I had hoped, but I think if we get that, you know, in this home stretch here of the season and into the postseason, then he makes us very dangerous. So I do tend to agree with you. I think Seth is more important, but I think there's an argument to be made for Jalen Withers too.
And as I said, I can make an argument for all 3, but those are the 2 I was most debating between because of like, I mean, homie steps to the free throw line and seals the game at Miami. I know people are like, oh man, got to hit your free throws. And you do. But you've never stood on the line in that kind of moment. It is insanely difficult. And for Jalen Withers to step in and do that after Carolina had just missed 5 straight, that's a different level, Pat Kilby, and you know that to be true as well. All right, last thing on this, and let's keep moving. If you were to put a golden number on how many points you want from the bench on a given night, and obviously infinite, you would want 83 points from the bench every night. But realistically, what is an ideal number of points from this bench, game in and game out? 15.
That's the number I'd like to see us hit. And I mean, you could maybe even make an argument that's a little high, but I really think 15 is the number. If we get that, man, I feel really good about our chances to win.
And here's what I like about that number specifically, or 12, somewhere in that range, is that's like 4 to 5 points from all 3 of them. So I can do that all day. All right, Pac, we got another question we want to ask each. By the way, I'd love to know your thoughts, folks, on this. What are the things you'd love to see Carolina fine tune and tweak in these final 3 regular season games? Carolina, we have noticed, has had a little bit of trouble putting teams away this season here and there, at least in recent weeks. What are the things that Pack and I are seeing that we would like to see Carolina tighten up there to fix those end of game stretches with this veteran team? We'll answer that question in just a second. Right after I tell you this episode is brought to you by Game Time. We are just 2 weeks away from the Power Conference college basketball tournaments, and maybe you don't have tickets, but you know your team is about to go on a wild run. Here's the great news. Game Time would be the perfect place to get those last-minute tickets so that you don't miss out on that excitement. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all, not only the sports, but also the music or comedy or theater, any of those type of events near you. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and a best price guarantee. And with that, Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind when you purchase. I love this thing that they've got. It's called Zone Deals. With Game Time Zone Deals, you pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you get massive savings when you do it. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time, where you can buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's $20 off your first purchase at Game Time with code LOCKEDON. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Pack, here is question number 2 that we want to talk about. We've seen this a couple times recently, but Carolina having a little bit of trouble putting teams away at the end of games. It happened in both games with Miami, including obviously Monday night when the RJ Davis game was almost spoiled by a Miami victory in the Smith Center. So Pat, similar to the conversation we just had, but different, let's each identify one big thing that we think has played a role in Carolina not closing well and what we think can or should be done to help fix that. You go first again.
All right. So my analysis on this is that it appears to me we're attempting to slow things way down. And I think there's good reason for that. I mean, if you look at it, I think our possessions have gotten longer and we are trying to take time off the clock and nurse a lead and get out of there more so than extend the lead. And see, I think that's a really dangerous game to play because what happens when you do that is, in a sense, sometimes I think the players feel like, okay, we're calling the dogs off. We've got this in the bag. We just got to get out of here, you know? And so you get, I don't want to say lazy in your approach, but you get more, not as locked in. And so the result of that is teams can fight their way back into a game. And it's just what we saw against Miami, right? We had the game won, and instead of extending that lead further or maintaining the lead, we let them back in the game. Mm-hmm. And so I think the key is we have to find a healthy balance between doing what was working, what got us that lead in the first place, and still being smart and wise with the basketball in order to take time off the clock, because there is some value in that. I mean, we know that. But It feels like, transition, for instance, that's become a huge part of what we do. If we can get transition with 6 minutes left up 13, why would we still not try to do that? I think those are the things that we've got to be better at. If we can get early opportunities to score, to maintain and extend the lead, we need to take advantage of those. If we don't get anything, okay, now we can pull it out. We can run a set. We can get into a quick action. We can see if we can get something while still getting time off of that clock. And so I think there's a healthy balance there, and we've just got to find it.
What? And that's my question. How do you find it? Is it when we get to, it's like, do we need a little flip book like we have in football for when to go for 2 or when to go for it on 4th down, of like this time with this score equals stall? What is that chemistry? What is the math on that, Pack?
Well, I think it goes back to kind of what I was talking about. What were you doing that was working that got you the lead? And I think that's the real key thing here is what is it you can take advantage of, and why are we going away from that? And it feels sometimes like just transition, man. And I know I mentioned it already, but a lot of times at the end of the game, you can even see from the sideline, and I'm not in any way, shape, or form questioning Coach Davis, so please don't take it that way.
Sure.
But he's going, you can see him put his hand up. He's going, hold up. And it's Cadeau, he's got the ball, and he's dialing up some type of set, which is great. You guys know I've talked about Coach Davis's offensive play calling. I think it's brilliant. I really do. It just feels like we thrive so much off transition. We're shutting that down a little earlier than I would like because it's been so successful. And so you just got to find that marriage of trusting your players to make plays, even when you're trying to nurse a lead or in a tight game. You've got to trust them to be able to make those plays. And then if nothing's there, okay, now we got to pull it out. We'll go your way, Coach. Hit me with a set and let's roll.
Yep. Well, Pat, if I may, that segues perfectly into what my answer was going to be for this question is trust your preparation better. Because I think one of the things is that people are like, do you not practice these moments? Why, or like, no, this team is absolutely going through this. They time after time after time, like you rehearse all of these end of game moments. Like, Pack, how often do you guys with your team practice? Like you'll put a certain time and score on the clock and play it out. Like how often is that happening?
Every day. I mean, there's not a practice goes by that we don't rep some type of scenario that way.
Absolutely. And so just so folks are aware of that, like that is happening every day at a practice. And so this is not from lack of preparation. This is not from lack of teaching or training or anything. And as Coach Davis talks about, you have been trained and taught and you were talented enough and now you go execute. And so what this means is when you get up there, like for me, as somebody that talks in public a lot, not just on here, but as a professor, one of the things that I struggle with sometimes is you forget, you do all this preparation, but then you worry that maybe you're not making your point well enough. And so you kind of keep circling the runway to try to make your point better. When instead, I should just trust my preparation, say what I plan to say, and get off of it and be done. You have to. And so what I like to say is trust past Isaac. And so for the team, I think it's about trust past Cormac and Harrison. Like trust the preparation you've done, be instinctual and go make plays. Be tough with the ball. Go receive the pass. Go grab the pass. Don't wait on it. That's my ball. Nobody else gets it. The free throws, that's kind of outside of this to me because that's a whole other mental thing. But just with being going through these things, you have done it. You've repped it. You've prepared it. You've gone through all of this. And now you just got to trust it and do it. And what I don't get is sometimes with this team that's very veteran, I feel like they don't always do that and kind of lose their heads a little bit.
Yeah, I totally agree. And even I'll go even a step further. You mentioned free throws and how that's a little bit of a mental thing, but that's still preparation in the sense that it's get up there, it's muscle memory, and it's got to be so much so a muscle memory that anything outside you're able to block out and just get up there and do your job. And that's it goes back to preparation, and the team needs to do a much better job of it. I think that's a great point.
Yeah. I love it, Pack. Well, we've got one more conversation to have. Pack, how about this? The 23-24 Tar Heels are currently achieving something that hasn't been accomplished at Carolina in at least 40 years. What is it? We'll answer that question in just a second. Right after I tell you this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, North Carolina, the wait is almost over. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, is coming to the Tar Heel state. On March 11th, you'll finally be able to bet on all your favorite teams in all your favorite sports. With FanDuel, there's tons of ways for you to get in on the action. You can bet on everything from the money line to over-unders to which team will win the second iteration of this year's Duke-Carolina rivalry. Come on, we know the answer to that one. All of that on an app that's safe and secure and super easy to use. Plus, with live betting, you can even pick which player will put up the next basket or the one after that. So come see for yourself why FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon so that you can be the first to know when FanDuel goes live in North Carolina. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Pack, got a weird update in real time. Wake Forest just followed up their massive win over Duke by losing at Notre Dame. This is not good for the ACC, and it's certainly not good for Wake and Coach Steve Forbes. We'll see what happens there, but it's almost like they've just negated that massive win with their first quad 3 loss. That was the big thing on their resume. No losses outside the top 2 quadrants. Now they got one. So we'll see what happens with the Demon Deacons there. Pack, this is crazy. So before Carolina's game against Miami on Monday, the Tar Heels had assisted on 50% or more of their field goals in 7 straight games. I keep a whole sheet full of assist percentage. That was tied for the longest streak of the Hubert Davis era. Now, what I say that because something I started to notice is on Monday, Armando Bacot didn't have many field goal attempts, but he did have 3 assists and just 1 turnover. So I started looking at his box scores a little bit and realized that in the last 4 games, Armando Bacot, 8 assists and 4 turnovers. That's a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, which for a big man, we will take that day in and day out. So Pack, here's what that also means. I was looking at his season numbers. For the season, he currently has a career high 1.1 assist to turnover ratio. Why is that a big deal? Because his first 4 years of college, he has never been over a 1.0 assist to turnover ratio. 0.7, 0.6, 0.8, and last year 0.6. So Pack, I'm sitting on an airplane flying home from Chapel Hill on Tuesday, and I was like, let me look at the rest of the contributors for Carolina just to see what's going on there. I realized that all 5 starters are over a 1.0 assist to turnover ratio, and in fact, RJ and Elliot are both over 2.0. Then I further realized, let me look at the rest of the guys. Seth is also over 1. He's at 1.3. So Carolina's top 6 minutes getters are all over 1.0 assist to turnover ratio. So I was just wondering, even furthermore, how rare is this? Is this something that is regular and I've just never caught it before? So I started researching. Pack, I gave up in 1983-84. I'm going to get back to it, but we had to start recording, so I had to quit for the night. But to that point, I had not yet found another Carolina team all the way back to 83-84 where the top 6 minutes getters all had an assist to turnover ratio that was positive, that was 1 or above. So I got to finish off the research, but Pack, this is wild. This team is accomplishing something that hasn't been done at Carolina in at least 4 decades. So my question is, does this matter to you? Like as a coach, is that a big deal that every one of your 6 main contributors has a positive assist to turnover ratio?
Absolutely. I think it's a major deal. Just because, what does the assist to turnover stat tell you? It tells you that we are turning the ball over less and we're finding open teammates more. And if that's a great sign for exactly what we see within this team chemistry, ball movement, the offense is working efficiently. And so, that stat in itself isn't like, I don't look at it as a major make or break stat, but it is used to determine whether or not we're doing a good job of sharing the basketball and taking care of it. And so to have everybody above 1.0, that's a big time deal right there.
Mm. So what is it like because I'm only like 3, 4, 5 hours into catching this. What is it with this team that is allowing that to happen? And why is it important for success going forward?
Well, I think with this team, it's a lot about just what I mentioned a second ago, the chemistry, the different skill sets and the way that the guys complement each other, but also how Coach Davis has designed the offense intentionally to complement each other. And the way, Cadeau, I'll start with him. he changes the dynamic of our offense. And you and I had a personal conversation earlier about how there's a positive domino effect with certain things. And Cadeau is just that for Carolina. Yeah. He created this idea of creating for others. And now these guys are doing it. I mean, all of them are. They're creating for each other. They're playing with each other. There's cohesiveness. There's chemistry. And obviously that's a big deal because it's reflecting in the stats that we're sharing the ball well. We're turning it over less. And usually when you're doing that, that translates to W's. And we want to keep getting those. So I think that's been a very, very big deal for Carolina.
Yeah. And it's funny because like at the team level, there are teams that have been infinitely better in terms of assist ratio, in terms of how many of their field goals they assist on. So it's like a lower percentage of that, but it's like, so to me that the math in my head in real time here, that tells me then they're still getting assists, maybe not as many percentage wise, but the turnovers continue to be down. And I think that's probably the biggest deal in this whole conversation to me.
Yeah. And, the other thing to keep in mind there, especially with this team, the assist, I think, now this is just kind of a working theory. This is like,
sure.
I don't have any stats to back it up. It's just my own thought process on the team. But this team doesn't necessarily spray the ball around like the old school Spurs, what you used to think of with them. But it's more of like there's some ISO to it. There's a ball screen. Oh, we got to switch. Let's go to work, or
Harrison, like Harrison. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
go.
He might just take you down there and post you up and play off of it. And so there's not necessarily more assists, but we're more efficient with our passes, if that makes sense.
It 100% does. And I think, however, like different rosters are going to be constructed different ways. And so I've said, like, I love it when the assist ratio is above 50%, but I'm okay with it not being like massively high on this team because of what you just talked about. Because of the way this team is constructed, it works to have some ISO stuff here and there sprinkled in with spraying it around in a healthy way. And so I like that mix a little bit with this team. I think I've really come to embrace that as this season has worn on. And so I'm encouraged to see this. I really hope, because it's really the key is Mondo, right? He's the one that has never had a positive assist to turnover ratio throughout, at 1 or above throughout his career. So really hoping he can continue that, because I think the other 5 of these top 6 minute getters are going to, right? Like I don't see Elliot and RJ are both above 2, so they ain't falling beneath it. But I don't see Cormac actually might be the next most vulnerable on it. If I remember from my looking at it, he was the next closest to falling on the negative side of this. So really interesting stuff. So folks, just keep an eye on that. Do I have more assists or turnovers for those top 6 guys? Pack, anything else you want to say on that?
No. I just think that's super impressive.
Well, then let's get out of here, because that's a podcast, folks. It's been so good to be together. While Wake just, didn't do what they needed to do. Again, a reminder, Carolina ultimately got that dub on Monday night. End of the day, that's what you had to do, and they did it. So we continue on, and we'll get ahead to looking at things. Coach Rob will join me on tomorrow's show, Thursday, and then Friday we will get ready for NC State coming to town, seeing what we can do in the post with Mr. DJ Burns, getting frisky with it down there in the post with Mondo. Excited for that. And there will be hatred all around, because that's what happens when the Wolfpack comes to town. So, if you are not subscribed to the Locked On Tar Heels Discord community, we'd love to have you. The link is in the show notes. It's free. Come be part of it. Subscribe to the show, video and audio. We'd love to have you there as well. Smash the like button if you're watching on YouTube so that we know you are here. But we always want to remind you, it's a great day to be a Tar Heel. We will talk again tomorrow, but until then, peace.